Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome and thank you for joining us on our final session of Tomorrow Today. My name is David Edmonds and I'm the Festivals Director at Severn Arts. Produced by the Artists Festival team here at Severn Arts, our 3-day online programme has been exploring both practical advice and guidance on what festival organisers will need to consider now when staging outdoor events, and the relationship between festivals, communities and placemaking post-COVID. In January 2019, Worcester was one of 5 cities to be awarded cultural development funding from DCMS with the aim of unlocking the city's creative and common economic growth by placing culture at the heart of regeneration and economic development. The project has 4 strands: restoring 8 Victorian railway arches into creative industrial spaces, a skills development programme to encourage young people to stay in the city, a destination management plan and an ambitious festivals programme. The Festivals programme is managed and produced through Severn Arts. And if you've not heard of us before, Severn Arts is a thriving charitable arts company based here in Worcester, where we bring high quality music and arts to a range of people across the county through innovative partnership working. You can find out more about both Severn Arts and the Artists Festivals online at severnarts.org.uk. Before we get into today's session, we're going to run through a few bits of housekeeping. You'll see today I'm joined by Laura, who will be interpreting today's session. If you'd like to turn on closed captioning for this session, you can do so by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your screen. Please make use of the chat function if you'd like to introduce yourself and which organisation or event you're representing today, and feel free to use this throughout the session too. Towards the end of the session, we'll be taking questions, so if there's anything you'd like us to discuss that is relevant to this session, then please pop it in the Q&A box. You can make it anonymous if you wish. So, time to get started. This session is our final session of the symposium, and we've asked 4 young Worcester-based practitioners to join us this week and sit in on all of the sessions and reflect on what they've taken away from 3 days of conversation. So I'd like to introduce Maria-Magdalena Mineva, Martha Henley, Owen Harper and Melissa Boyle, and welcome them all to today's session. Hi all.
Hello.
In addition, as part of this programme, we invited poet and writer Casey Bailey just join us for the 3 days and to articulate his own thoughts and reflections in his own unique style at the end of our session. It's no mean challenge for Casey to ask him to sit in on 3 days and then come up with a piece of poetry, spoken word work by the end of the session. So Casey will be joining us at the end, and I do hope you'll all stick around for that. So welcome everybody. My first question, I guess, to all of you, and I think, maybe we'll start with Martha on this question, is what has been the main thing you're taking away from the last 3 days?
So I've really enjoyed the sessions. They've been really interesting and informative, but I think the main points that sort of resonated with me over the last 3 days are sort of the notion of working with communities, and as you said in your session yesterday, David, in New to Outdoor Arts, is how we can take places on a journey through community engagement and empowerment, like Rebecca Blackman said earlier. This morning, focusing on sort of the importance of empowering the community. This can be done through sort of trust building and empowering community. This can be done through, trust building and transparency, which I really like the idea of, with focusing on developing a long-lasting relationship within the community as well, through creating dialogues with shops and traders and volunteers as well. I really felt volunteers are a really important part of festivals and a part of a community as well, not to mention how vital they are to audience and the relationship you create with them. And the way we interact with our audience and having those conversations instead of sort of the traditional us and them feel, I really like that. And I feel like, they were sort of the 3 main things that have sort of stuck with me over the sessions.
That's great. Really, really nice start. Melissa, can I come to you next for your main takeaways from the last 3 days?
Yeah, so again, I had a few things that kind of stood out to me and also inspired a little bit of thought as well, where I thought, oh, that's interesting. I want to actually look into that myself a little bit more as well. So one thing in particular that I noticed from the crowd psychology talk within the Keeping Your Audiences Safe panel was the need for people to be together is greater than the fear of the actual pandemic itself, because we crave human connection and social connection so much that we would much rather follow the rules to be able to go and see friends and socialise with people and have a good time together. And the other part of that coming off that was that as long as we keep our audiences informed, they're more likely to stick to the rules. So if they've kind of been there on the journey from the beginning, they're more likely to stick to the rules that are in place, because then they know what to expect and it's not a completely unknown situation to them. And then the second thing that really stood out to me was the way that it was just a thought inspired by the practical advice panel, and that it just made me think, like, yes, COVID-19 has limited us as artists, but it's also entered us into a heightened sense of creativity as well, because we're looking to different places and we're looking at different things of how we can get creative and how we can connect as artists. And because of the limits that it has placed on us and the lack of opportunity as well, I've found that people are beginning to create their own opportunities. So things like digital fundraisers and kind of running things online. And I've seen dance schools that I've followed from being really young, and seeing that they're doing like socially distanced dance lessons in the local park. And it's just like, those experiences I think will stick with people for a long time. But yeah, just that heightened sense of like, yes, it's limited us in so many different ways, but it's also allowed us to open our minds even more as artists and look to new opportunities as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Melissa. Owen, can we come to you next, please, for your reflections?
Of course you can. Well, basically, the first thing was moving theatre into like outdoor spaces, because I've just finished my master's on Friday. So I've just done 4 years of theatre in a black box studio, not going outside. So doing this all week and listening to the talks has really been like an eye opener, really. And it was, to me, it was terrifying at first, the idea of doing anything outside, because it was a bit like, right, I haven't trained to do this. I don't have any experience in this. Even when we did do a piece of work, my company, during lockdown, it was over Zoom, essentially. And we didn't go outside. We went to the garden. That was about it. So again, it was something that was just completely new to me. So I think exploring that was a bit terrifying at the beginning, thinking about it, listening to everyone talk, and a load of stuff about risk assessments and stuff. Like, that's all now straight over my head. Never even thought about any of that. But I think I'm in a good position for me personally, just about to start my career. And I think it's a new avenue to explore. Definitely. It's definitely something that's interesting. Something good to come out of COVID. And the second thing I was going to talk about was, it was actually in your talk yesterday, David. You were talking about taste and subjectivity, quality and taste, basically. And I was saying that quality, to me, is still subjective. So I'm a little bit confused by what you meant there. Because to me, someone would say something like the ballet is high quality and amazing. Whereas to me, someone who's grew up in Wolverhampton, I don't see the relevance in it at all. So yeah, I'm a little bit, to me, I think quality is still a little bit subjective, but we can talk about that later if you like.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. That's a great conversation. I look forward to that. We'll come back to that, mark that one. Brilliant. Thank you, Owen. And Maria-Magdalena, your headlines from the last 3 days for you.
Oh, so many. I think the sessions today, really, a lot of the things that you spoke about really sort of resonated with me. My producer brain really enjoyed the keeping your audiences safe and the practical advice for event design and delivery, because, you know, all the contingency planning that we usually do is now, you know, tripled pretty much. And it's really made me think about, you know, making and planning events and producing events in like a much bigger scale. And also thinking about making and programming work that stays with people. So like what you mentioned yesterday, that story of Light Night with the family that came to the seesaws in the pajamas, that's also one of my favorite stories from that night. And as that was my first experience with outdoor art, it's definitely something that I can, you know, relate to, because just from that one night that we did, it's, you know, absolutely shaped what I want to do, and I want to, you know, work towards bringing people out that stays with them for a long time.
Right. Just for those that weren't with us for that session yesterday, Maria-Magdalena, and because it's such a great story, do you kind of just want to recap on what that was and maybe why that landed so much with you in terms of resonated as what you want to do career-wise and who you want to make work or enable work to happen with and for?
Yeah, so the story goes, so we were doing Light Night in January this year, and we had these amazing light up seesaws come from all the way from Canada, and people, were going and playing on them, and there was a volunteer who told us that a woman had called her neighbour. She was already there, and she called her neighbour. She was like, you need to grab the kids and you need to come down city centre. There's these amazing light up seesaws. So the lady grabbed her children all in pyjamas, and they came down and, just for like half an hour just played on the seesaws. And that basically, made their whole night. They didn't plan on going, but because they heard from their friend that this was something good that was happening in their city, they obviously went and had an amazing time, and they were also happy and taking photos and everything. And knowing that happened, and knowing that those kids and that woman will tell that story and be like, oh yeah, the Arch Festivals are putting in another festival, we need to go because last time this happened. Because they know that we will deliver something that they will enjoy and they will remember in the future.
Brilliant, thank you. So the next part of this session is deliberately unscripted, and we're kind of just going to have a conversation around some themes, so it could go anywhere, which I'm really excited about. So I'm interested in your views collectively around, and we've talked a lot, as you heard, around community. And I know previously, Owen, I've had conversations with you about community and where that fits, and where we've neatly packaged that into an idea that we think fits for our narrative currently. But also I think we tend to do that with young people and young professionals. And I'm just interested in terms of where all that sits with you currently, as individuals, based in Worcester and Worcestershire, wanting to either having started to set out on that journey in kind of arts and culture as young practitioners. When somebody talks about community and the Worcester community and young people of Worcester, where does that all sort of resonate in the context of the last 3 days and the things we've talked about? Martha, why don't you kick us off on that?
I think communities, again, from my point earlier about having that sort of real empowerment and like bringing people together of all ages as well. I really like the idea of sort of bringing even the young and the old together, because I think that's something that is a really lovely idea, and that we can all sort of educate each other with what we know. And and I think community in Worcester, is something that is definitely quite close to my heart. I'm from Malvern, so quite close to Worcester, and the festivals, especially looking at Light Night and everything, is something that we really need. And as an upcoming city as well, I think it's really important that we sort of focus on community and also the high street as well, and how we can bring that in. And help and support them within a community too. And I really like the idea of sort of bringing in the support and working with other parts of the community, like the travel and making it available to people so we can get people into the city as well. That was a really good point as well made earlier today, was the fact that, it's not always that people don't know about it, it's that they just can't get there or they don't have access to it. And it's about just bringing all these people together so that they can have an experience and enjoy it. And I think that's something that's definitely stuck with me this week, is that it's so important, that human connection and that feel. And I think, that's a really important factor in our lives as humans.
Who else would like to jump in on that point?
I would, if you don't mind.
Yeah, great, brilliant, Melissa.
I just wanted to talk about like kind of the family experience, and also inspiring like the next generation of artists, because I think if young people aren't exposed to art from a young age, they're potentially not understanding kind of the impact that it can have, whether that's something that you enjoy doing with your family, whether that's something that you want to do as a career, something that you just do as a hobby. I think just having that opportunity and being able to like stumble upon something that as a child, there's light up seesaws as a child. I know that I would have been like, whoa, what's this? Like, give me a go, let me on them. Just stumbling across something like that maybe even people just thought, oh, let's go out for a day of shopping, and then, or an evening, we'll go out for a meal or something like that, and they just happen to come across these things that maybe they didn't even know were happening. And I think as a family, that's something that I hold quite close to my heart as well, because my family would always go and watch the Christmas pantomime and things like that. And I think having that experience as a child did inspire me to then think, do you know what, actually, I love the theatre. It's what I've always been used to. It's what I've been surrounded by. So that's what I want to do as a career. And I just think it's really lovely to have access to that, no matter what kind of community you're a part of. I think that everyone deserves to have access to the arts.
And Owen, as a practitioner, who I know he's committed to wanting to stay in Worcester, and as you've said already, kind of being a very proud Wolver. What's the collective phrase for Wolverhampton?
You can't say it in public.
But Worcester's become your adopted home through university, and you're committed to wanting to stay in the city and make work there. How do you view that and this word community, I guess, differently post the lockdown? So we're obviously still, I'm keen that we don't talk about post-COVID too much, because we're still living with it and in amongst it, so it's not gone yet. But those earlier days, has your view changed differently on community and your role maybe within an artistic community that is Worcester?
Yeah, I think at the beginning of sorry, that's a car going past my house. It's been quiet all day, and then there's cars now. But so I think at the beginning of before lockdown really occurred, I felt like I was in a little bit of an isolated bubble, really, because I was still at university. I was living in a student house, so the neighbours just ignore you completely because you'll be gone within 12 months. On like an artistic side, I got to know people at Severn Arts. I got to know people involved with with the arts project and stuff like that. But apart from that, not really. I didn't really feel part of Worcester. It wasn't something that I really. I tried to. I have friends here. I've worked here since I've been at university, or since I was at university. So I knew a few people, but no, I never felt I was part of the community. I didn't really feel like I understood most of what Worcester was about, really. I felt more at home getting on the train and going to Birmingham than I did in Worcester. But I did love it, and I think it's a beautiful city. But during lockdown, especially, it became a different thing, especially in my old street where I was living, because all the neighbours used to go out and play bingo. Or like our next door neighbour, she was an artist, and she used to run painting sessions, and she'd knock the door and ask if we wanted to go around, and she kept delivering art to our door, which was really nice because it's a student house, there was nothing in it. So there was nice colourful pictures everywhere. So I think it kind of opened people in Worcester up a little bit. And I think it opened up everyone a little bit. Everyone was like, right, we've got nowhere to go, so we may as well get to know who's next door a little bit. So, so I think it kind of opened everyone's eyes on like a more personal level. But on an artistic level, I'm not really sure. I think at first everyone kind of ran into themselves a little bit. It became a little bit, I'm going to retreat into myself. I'm going to take it as a holiday for 2 weeks. It's going to leave. I know I did. It was a 2-week holiday at first. Lockdown was just got nothing to do for 2 weeks. I'm going to sit in my bedroom. And then realised it wasn't going anywhere. And then I think you have to start to adapt. And I think you said it quite a few times in the last few days that, people who are artistic are problem solvers. So I think when you want to create a piece of work and you've got nothing else to do but think about the work you want to create, you just make the work that's relevant to the situation. So I feel it's throughout some, the entire experience of lockdown has really throughout some really exciting work and new ways of looking at things, really. But whether that's going to stay in Worcester as a community, I'm not sure yet. I don't know. I'd like to think it is.
It's really, we're going to come to that a little bit later when we start to kind of, I'm really intrigued to get your views on what you'd like Worcester to look like going forward. So we'll come back to that. Maria-Magdalena, kind of, that similar question that Owen's just answered around, you're committed, you came to the UK to come to the university, you stayed and based your practice there, you kind of, you're very committed to wanting to have an input in the city going forward. What is that how has COVID changed that in any way? Has it changed it in any way in terms of your thinking around where you want to be based and how you want to work?
I think I always kind of planned to come to Worcester, and my original plan was actually, when I came to university, to move after I graduate. But those 4 years that I spent here really, I made it my home, and I sort of started growing roots a little bit. And COVID and lockdown has made me, at the same time question if I should, go and explore other places, or but at the same time has also kind of driven that passion to stay here and work for Worcester, because I think Worcester has so much potential, and people like Owen and Mel, who come out of like the university, have so much passion and have so many ideas, and it's so good for them to have those opportunities and have those platforms that we're starting to create, to stay here as well, because there is so many bright, good minds here. And unfortunately, I think before, they didn't really have a lot of opportunities to stay or express that brightness.
Really good, thank you. So I'm going to throw a question in from our audience, because we're actually getting loads, which is great, and we wanted to kind of bring them into the debate. So I'll throw this out to all of you and see who wants to jump on it first. As you're all local to Worcester, how would you like future Worcester to look in terms of arts and culture, and how can organisations within the city help you visualise that?
I think personally, I'd like it to be a little bit more colourful and a little bit more diverse. I think, I think it's definitely what everyone needs after lockdown anyway. But I think anyway, going forward, I think that a lot more diversity of everything, really. Diversity of all types of art and every single meaning of the word. I think diversity is great, and I think Worcester could do with a little bit of diversity, I think. And I guess with the, what was the second part of the actual question you said then, sorry?
What would you like to see from organisations for, what do you want Worcester to look like going forward in terms of arts and culture as a practitioner and as a resident? And what do you think organisations could do within the city to help make that happen?
I think run some development schemes with some, I hate the word young people, because I don't know what it means. I don't know what the word young people means, but we'll use it. Run some development things with some young people. Yeah, I think that would be great. That keeps a lot of people around as well. And I think it's a good way of fostering a community of artists in an area. Yeah.
Melissa, do you want to come in on that same question?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, just if people do want to reach out and kind of connect with young artists, you've got the university there that's, there's young people graduating from there every single year, and they've got lots of brand new bright ideas, and getting in touch with them and saying, look, we've got these opportunities and we'd love to get your students involved, and even with like graduates like myself and Owen, just reach out and and contact you, and I think just being able to have that like networking opportunity as well, so like connecting artists within the city, because I think when we are at university, we're in that little like university bubble, and we know who's at the university, and we have our own kind of little bubble there, but just kind of widening that into the city itself, and getting to know other artists in the city that might have been going for a good couple of years, that potentially might have graduated from the university as well, and getting in touch with them. But yeah, I just think having that like really lively kind of networking bubble between us all, whether that's organisations, artists, graduates, students, and just getting everybody connecting with each other as well.
Brilliant. Owen, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, it was. I was just thinking about the organisations and things that Mel was saying. Just, I think organisations must have given especially young artists and new artists, the opportunity to fail a little bit, giving us a little bit of security that we can make something that might not be the best thing we've ever made, but it's a beginning. It's where we're going to start. So I'd like to see a few more like scratch night type things, and events such as that going on in Worcester, because Worcester's got the capacity to do it 100%. It just needs someone to basically tell us where to go, to point us in the right direction. And I think scratch nights are great, but I'm also of the opinion that if you want something to be done well, you should also pay a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, but I do think things like scratch nights and such should be funded a little bit, should be commissioned slightly. But yeah, I think having opportunities like that around here, and I think arts organisations in Worcester can do that. It's 100% can be done easily.
Brilliant, thank you. And Martha, did you have a point you wanted to jump in on with there?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. Both of those points are really great. And it was like going back to sort of the giraffes that were around Worcester for a period of time. It was like they were great and everyone in Worcester was talking about them and everyone enjoyed them. There were photos on Facebook. And I think it's just that it doesn't always need to be a massive thing, but it's just those little things that add to the city's sort of culture and things that you can that attract people as well and that bring conversation. I think they're really important, especially sort of such a small sort of lovely city like Worcester. It really sort of brings people together, but also sparks that conversation and that sort of like arts and culture sort of feel to it as well. And I think going back to Owen's point of diversity, I think it's a great idea and totally Worcester needs it.
Brilliant. So it kind of follows on from that. And Maria-Magdalena, I'll aim this one at you first. So thinking about what would help young people stay in the city, what's the one thing each of you would say to the gatekeepers in the arts world, those people who control opportunities or the pace of change? What would you want to see? And obviously the context of our programme of work through the Artists Festivals and through Severn Arts is a huge investment and commitment to young people and pathways forward. We have the whole Participate strand that is exactly about that. But if we're using a bit of a reset button post-COVID, what's the one thing, and we've touched on some of it in that last question, but one thing that you go, if we could do that would unlock a lot moving forward?
I would say probably a lot of sort of young artists in Worcester would probably need funding. And like you said, there's already projects like that going on, but it never hurts to have a few more to give those people that opportunity, because I think there's always as well that sort of battle in young people when they want to pursue art and culture careers between having a regular job and then having the time as well to make your art, produce your art. So probably any sort of funding schemes that can be done would probably be very appreciated.
Great. And Melissa, your answer to that question?
I'm going to quote ABBA and just say, take a chance and just let us in. Because I think sometimes leaving university and like actor training and stuff like that, you can feel like it's very overwhelming and going for competitive. But sometimes it feels like you can't quite get your foot in the door and get your. Just take a chance.
Brilliant.
That's all I have to say on that, I think.
We're never going to turn down ABBA quotes on day 3.
Exactly.
Owen, for you, that's similar. What that one thing that you go, actually, that would make such a big difference?
I think free up some public spaces a little bit. I think make public spaces more accessible for arts. I think.
Tell me more about that.
So I think, like at the town centre, I was talking to a friend recently, and they were talking about how it'd be great if you get some chalk and just got a load of kids to just colour in chalk all along the main like high street, and just close it down for half an hour, let kids go crazy at it with some chalk, and then open it back up and just see what it looks like. And that's something that could obviously be done social distance with the children, 100%. But I think freeing up public spaces for people. I know Worcester's doing something at the moment with shops, isn't it? The shops that aren't open at the moment. I think that's a great idea. But I think more things like that, 100%. Just take over some places. Why not? It'll be fun. Everyone will enjoy it.
And kind of relating it back to probably the things you've heard today, to kind of all for you, do you feel that's likely in terms of, we talked about how places may work differently in terms of where does retail fit, where does experience fit, those types of moments, can you Can you imagine that? And is that what you think, actually, that feels more possible now than it did?
I think it does. I think, yeah, 100%. I think it is something. I think we're in a cultural shift at the moment. I think we're either going to go one way or the other, and I'm hoping it goes the way I'd like it to. The other one is completely no contact and no one talks to anyone. So I prefer the other route, but I do think it's possible, 100%. I think as a community, really, as a society, really, we're craving that at the moment, and I think if that's something that we can all jump on, you know what I mean, we can just ride it out till the end, really. So, yeah.
And Martha, similar to you, does it feel a reality that could be that sort of shift in how we engage and use place?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. And I think Worcester could really benefit off that as well. And from the sounds of it, there are a lot of people who could use that as well, and bring some really great new opportunities and really creative ways of doing things as well. And I think that's something, again, that's come out of this, is that it sparks creativity in a whole new way to maybe what we've thought of before. It's sort of not in the four walls of those boxes anymore.
Great stuff. We have another question now from Andrew Loretto, who was one of our panelists on the earlier session. So thank you for sticking around, Andrew. And Andrew's question to all four of you was, if you were to create a manifesto for outdoor arts for the next 5 years, what would be your bucket list number one item to go on that? Great question, Andrew. Maria-Magdalena, I'm going to put you on the spot first on that one.
Okay. I would say probably diversity, and those are, things that were mentioned earlier in the keynote and then the panel afterwards. As someone who is an immigrant in England, I will always care a lot about diversity, and whether that's based on gender identity, race, ethnicity, sexuality. I think the arts and events industries, what they're all about is to give people richness of life, and what can be more rich than diversity, really, at least for me. And I think we've started to listen to each other a lot more recently, so hopefully that will be something that we can continue walking towards full speed.
Great, lovely answer, thank you. Owen, for you, so the one thing you can put on the manifesto bucket list?
I think it would be the overall, over the 5 years, it would be to just make people smile. I know it sounds really, but I think we've had a lot of things in the last, even before lockdown, we had Brexit, which was like incredibly divisive nationwide. Then we went into lockdown, so no one saw anyone. So I think we just need to, for the time being, just make people smile and make people think. I think that would be my number one goal, no matter how it's done, no matter whatever, but yeah, make people smile and to make people think. That would be it, really.
Thank you, Owen. Martha, same question to you.
So I think it would be community, making sure that we sort of really feel that community, and we sort of produce these ways of working as well, where we can sort of nurture that and we can bring people together, the young and the old. I really like that thought of sort of getting people to work together from different walks of life that can really inspire one another. And I really like that idea, and I think that would be something great to include, especially for sort of a 5-year plan, which can really develop.
Brilliant. And Melissa?
I think mine would be to educate. I think there's been a lot of different things going on in the world over the past couple of months, and I think one of the most powerful things that we can do as artists is to use our experiences to educate people, to challenge perceptions, to challenge opinions, and really get people thinking. So yeah, I think to educate would be mine.
Brilliant. So I've got a couple more questions, because we've hurtled through that session, and I'd happily chat to you all afternoon. So I've a couple more questions before we then kind of bring Casey in to perform for us. So I guess if from this point you were going into the outdoor arts as a career, as a producer, as a performer, Owen, if you were inspired to make work that was outdoor arts, how do you feel about that right now? If today is the jump off point, and listening to what you've heard about the last 3 days, for you personally, How do you feel about that? Do you feel optimistic? Do you feel scared? Do you feel a bit of both? You know, where do we fit? And I think I'll come to Martha first for the answer on that one.
So excited, I think, with a little bit of nervousness, only because I think it's a great opportunity, and I think, as Melissa just said, we've got the chance to educate people, we've got the chance to give people a smile. I think it's really great, but then as somebody who's just starting out, it can be quite a hard sort of thing to face, especially as there are lots of other people now looking at moving into outdoor arts. So there might be quite, not competition, but, you've got a lot of people trying to do the same thing, but then again, collaboration might then spark from, lots of people having the same goal in mind.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martha. Melissa?
Could you repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah, so if you were starting out in a career today and kind of in outdoor arts, either as a maker or as a producer, but you decided that outdoor arts and that world was where you wanted to be, how would you feel about that kind of stepping out on that journey today, as you based in Worcester and the things you've heard over the last 3 days?
I think it's quite exciting. It's outdoor arts isn't something that I've particularly done before. I've usually made work for like an indoor space. I've seen outdoor art and outdoor performances. There was one that I saw at the RSC, which was like all of Shakespeare's female characters, and they were all kind of in this garden, and it was a walkabout experience, and that was amazing. And I came away from that feeling actually really inspired. And just being at uni and things like that, I've always kind of stuck to the indoor performance space, but it's something that I definitely feel that the door's open for me now to enter kind of into that outdoor space. And I think with the current situation, we just have to make the most of it, and make the most of outdoor work and outdoor festivals and take the opportunities as we can. So yeah, I feel quite optimistic about it, yeah.
Brilliant. Owen, same question to you.
I'm about it, I am. I think it'll be really good. I think it'll be fun. Why not? Like, there's nothing else really for me to do currently. Everywhere else is closed. I'm creative. I've just finished my degree. I got nothing to lose currently. It's not like I've got a 10-year career which could be wasted if I'd made a wrong move. I could, why not? I work with a great group of people, and I think we've got potential to do something good. So I'm quite excited. Yeah, I think it'll be fun. It's a bit different from a studio space, which I've been used to, like I said, for 4 years, but. You know what I mean? To get rid of the walls, it'll be fine. Everything's fine. Although I am, I don't like the idea of what you were saying earlier, David, about just taking Romeo and Juliet and putting it outside. That'd be awful. That'd be terrible. I wouldn't like that. But I think it's a new avenue of work to explore. Like, how do we tell, as a theatre maker, how do you tell a story outside? Do you use the environment? And if so, where'd you put that piece? It becomes a lot more. You got to think about texture more, haven't you? Because what's the backdrop to your piece? Where are you? What are you doing? But yeah, I'm excited. I think it'll be fun. Also, it's where all the funding is currently. It's, you know what I mean. So, you know what I mean. It's one of those you've got to adapt. But it's an exciting prospect.
Brilliant. Thank you, Owen. And Maria-Magdalena, that question to you. So, kind of, you're on a bit of that journey currently, but how do you feel about that going forward in maybe the role you're currently doing, but also where you want to go?
I think I was terrified for a really long time in the beginning of lockdown. I was so scared. But now in the past couple of months, definitely sort of like an echo to what everyone said, is optimistic, because, if you don't have optimism, you kind of, you just be sad and not do anything. So I'm trying to be very, very optimistic, and I'm always about experimenting, and why not mix theatre and outdoor arts, and that could work perfectly or it could turn horribly, but I'm willing to try, and I'm definitely very much happy and looking forward to the future.
Brilliant. And so I'm going to come to sort of final wrap-up questions before we bring Casey to on screen with us. going forward, and it's kind of linked to that sort of last question, and based on thinking about the 3 days we've had and those conversations, what are you hopeful for? What you know, and that might be what you want the city to look like, or what you want your role to look like, or but what is the thing that you can actually that's given hope? Or the alternative question you can answer is, what's changed in your thinking as a result of the last 3 days and all of the sessions you've sat in and you've heard and kind of reflected on? Is there anything changed in your thinking as a result of that? So what are you hopeful for, and what has changed, if anything, in your thinking? And Maria-Magdalena, will come to you first on that.
I think I'm hopeful. I think something that you said, and you have mentioned before, but you said it yesterday in one of the sessions, is, lockdown has made us think about what it is to be human. And what I'm hopeful for is to continue seeing that in our industries. I think, seeing so many cultural organizations, doing whatever they can, like providing shelter or providing food to people. I would love to see that happening. And I hope that the way we've started to maybe care more about each other during lockdown continues. And on the flip side, we've also unfortunately seen a lot of industry professionals or self-employed people or young people who've just started out in our industries be sort of left behind, unfortunately, when it comes to, furlough schemes or sometimes government funding. So I would love to see, arts and culture industries and event industries to be seen and recognized for everything that they do, because I think we provide a lot for people and a lot of the time that's overlooked.
Great answer. Melissa, to you.
Yeah, I would say that I'm hopeful of the opportunities that might arise for young artists and performers coming out of the pandemic, because I think with having like events like this in particular, people are willing to listen to us. And I think it's given us a platform to talk about the things that, we want and what we want to change or what we might want to see in the future. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to those kinds of opportunities coming up. And whether that's, large scale events or just small little things. And also just to continue making the most out of opportunities to network with people as well. I think there's been a lot of networking opportunities that wouldn't necessarily have happened before. So for example, with my theatre company, I organised a digital fundraiser for SARI, that stands against racism and inequality. And it started off as this little lockdown project that I thought, I'll probably get a couple of artists applying, and it ended up being, I had people applying and submitting work internationally, and then I ended up on a Zoom call with people from as far away as America and Japan, so of all different ages. And it was just amazing how all of us came together from across the world in such a difficult time, and almost created like a little support group for ourselves for like an hour and a half while we were on the Zoom call, just talking about different things. So yeah, I'd definitely love to continue kind of following through with those kinds of things and connecting with people, not just in like a local sense, but also kind of across waters as well. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Melissa. Owen?
I think I'm hopeful for a societal change, really, a bit of a cultural change in how we view culture and what culture in the arts is, because I've said it earlier, I think I'm like a working class artist, come from Wolverhampton, born in Warsaw, and the arts is a very middle class place, and it really is, and I think theatres, the actual buildings, kind of, they don't help with that. I've been since I was 12, been doing theatre at school and such, so that's 10 years, and I still feel a little bit out of place if I go into a theatre. But I don't feel out of place when I'm in the streets. You know what I mean? That's where me and my mates used to ride our bikes. You know what I mean? A park is where we used to go after school. So I think outdoor arts would give the opportunity for working class artists to make work which is more relevant to them. So I'm hopeful for that. I'm hopeful for an abundance of working class art. I think that would be something nice to come out of this. Yeah.
Thank you, Owen. And final answer to you, Martha. I'm going to give you about a minute to succinctly tell us, what are your hopes going forward?
So going back to sort of this empowering of communities and sort of it becoming more of the norm instead of us sort of having to like push for this collaboration in a sense, and just it happening in more of sort of a natural way, and bringing sort of the different ages and generations together to include parts of the community and really sort of bring this community connection and carry that on, because I feel over COVID sort of we have got to know our communities more, and that's been a really lovely thing that I think should carry on because everybody's enjoyed it in their own sort of way. So yeah.
Amazing. I'd just like to thank Maria-Magdalena, Martha, Owen and Melissa for joining us, for having been here for the whole 3 days. And, you know, you've had some really interesting conversations as a group. And, you know, it's been brilliant that we're ending our symposium with your voices and kind of, as Melissa said, giving you a platform to share your thinking around it. So thank you for your time and your input. And I'm now going to welcome Casey back to join us. Hi, Casey.
Hey guys, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. So panelists, yeah, feel free, you can stay and watch, but or you can feel free to leave. So I'm just going to do a little bit of intro around Casey. So because of the way we work with festivals and with what we've been doing in terms of Zoom, we've always wanted to maintain an artistic element to our things. So the minute we were going to do a symposium or conference, there had to be some performance elements to it. So we've had some beautiful live music over the last couple of days. We had the performance from video from Motion House this afternoon, and we felt a really nice way to kind of close everything was to commission a new piece of spoken word by a poet. And we were aware of Casey's work. We really liked Casey's work, and we set him the challenge of sitting in on these sessions for 3 days and then coming up with something brand new and alive to be performed. So I'm delighted to welcome Casey Bailey to join us to present his reflections. Casey's a writer, performer and educator, born and raised in Netchells in Birmingham, has performed nationally and internationally, spent time in residency with the Royal Shakespeare Company, and toured and facilitated up and down the country. His debut poetry pamphlet, Waiting at Bloomsbury Park, was published in 2017, and his first full collection of poetry, Adjusted, was published in 2018 by Verve Poetry Press. So Casey, welcome. Thank you for doing this. I'm really intrigued. I hope everybody enjoys Casey's performance, and I'll now hand over to you.
Thank you very much, David. I think it's worth me pointing out that I'm also a University of Ulster alumni, and I just say that not because it's relevant, but because I like to feel a part of something. Okay, cool. So this poem has been written over the 3 days. I finished it about 15 minutes ago, and I've been tweaking it. And yeah, I think it goes like this. Let's be clear. We're gathered here in this virtual space because we love physical events and want them to take place. But of course, we can't run with our eyes held shut. And it's important that we always keep the audience safe. So many people are worried. I'm sure we all get it. Most people have seen nothing like this. Let's not forget it. We aren't just suffering the impact of COVID. We're also living through a fear pandemic. People need to be together, thrive on socialization. But after lockdown, this needs reimagination. We have to be mindful of the different implications, think of crowd density and event duration. We all know that events are enriching for our soul. Until we have them back, we might feel that we aren't whole. So to keep risk down, think of the acronym ERIC: eliminate, reduce, isolate, control. The principles are the same, just more preparedness, more pages on risk assessments, enhanced awareness. Like, do people really know what 2 meters is? And do people really understand the need for this? There'll be more time planning and a longer wait. But if you're unsure, then be sure to communicate. Ask all the questions that you have and make no apology. You should be able to lean on your local authority. Safety is at the forefront. But remember why we do this. If people don't enjoy it, then the whole thing's useless. We have to keep the fun safe, not have the fun replaced. We don't want the people at the cinema to miss the movies. We have to think about it all, join it up at the seams. This is made by planning. This isn't made in dreams. It's important to have great relationships between your production, technical and safety teams. Be brave. It's easy for me to say for sure, but I am sure you can do it. It is what you're here for. It's time to innovate, open up new doors. Don't just try to replicate the things that you did before. Don't water down events and settle for second rate. Come with new ideas. Maybe find a new space. Just remember, right now, you are somebody's hero, and it's important and it's impossible to ever reduce the risk to zero. The key is to create moments, though times are disconcerting, because we know at times art can be life-affirming, plant a memory in the mind that is truly worth preserving at a time where we don't just have a need for art, we deserve it. Think of access. Put art where people can reach, remove barriers. You can make a stage out of a street. If you're just starting out, don't prepare a big feast. Start small. You can grow. There's no need to compete. It's a time for us to fight the fear by innovating, see festivals reimagined, high streets reanimated, work together, continuing to work in the community, elevate their ideas, and create some opportunities. We will need to take a pause, design some new targets, work in different spaces, connect with different artists. Let's stand up, dry our eyes, see ourselves revitalized, like Worcester's Victorian railway arches. Look to festivals of the future with keen consideration of their role in rebuilding and community engagement. They're as important for placemaking as legislation, so we must keep them at the center of regeneration. We've been through some dark times, but they won't last forever. Ask me when the art will die, I'd have to tell you never. Whether indoor or outdoor, whenever or wherever, we can make it through this storm if we stand in it together. Thank you.
Casey, that was amazing. Thank you so much. What a fantastic way to capture some of the conversations we've gone on this way. And I'm just in awe that you've managed to sit through all of the sessions this week and then turn that into something so poignant, so beautiful, and so encapsulating everything we've kind of experienced this week. So thank you for that so much. What a great piece of work. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And we will be trying to share Casey's work and links to Casey's socials so you can find out more about him as an artist and as a performer. So do check him out. So Casey, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for this week. That's been a brilliant way to wrap things up.
Thank you. Thank you.
So finally, it leaves me to kind of wrap up all 3 days. From everyone at Severn Arts, we'd like to thank everyone that's joined us over the last few days. We hope you found the sessions enlightening. We hope there's been interesting debate, things that made you think, things you've learned, things you've shared. I'd like to say a huge thank you to the team behind the scenes that have put this together. It's been a new experience for us doing an online Zoom conference, and there are lots of people behind the scenes at Severn Arts that have helped make this happen over the last 3 days and weeks of planning. So thank you to the team, and thank you all for joining us. Please keep in touch with us. You can find us at Severn Arts on social media. You can find the Artists Festivals, and we wish you a great rest of the week, and really thank you for joining us over the last 3 days. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.